Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Imagine being able to come up with an adventure, write a book about it, and then come up with another one that's totally different, write another book about it. It can be done. We're going to talk to somebody who has done that, some amazing fiction books. Going to dig into the whole process with all of that. And of course, if you're going to do it, you have to work with a fantastic, reputable publisher. We have one. Mark Pogodzinski from NFB Publishing joins us once again today on the program. How's it going, Mark?
Good. How are you today?
Fantastic. And I love when we get together, you'll bring along some guests to the party and we get some insight, from your perspective as a publisher and then also from the author side. Who do we have with us today?
So we have Marshall Seddon with us today, who is author of 4 different fiction novels. And the thing that sets Marshall apart is the variation of his books, from murder mystery thrillers to call it historical fiction about Vikings making their way down the St. Lawrence Seaway to Western New York and meeting the native.
That was a fun one. That was in
the area. So it's a fascinating type of writing, and the fact that you can write these different types of fiction genres so well without losing steam.
Well, that's a great compliment for you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Marshall, thanks so much for being here today. I initially got to jump in and ask this question. When you wrote your first book, which one was it? Which out of the 4?
Well, the first one was Shadow of Forever, the Viking story. Okay. And I wrote that maybe 20 years ago and shopped it around, couldn't find anybody that would support it. And then I wrote another one called The Sleeper Street Gang, which is a sort of a treasure hunt. These guys are using a journal to try to find a stolen bank robbery box that has a lot of money in it, that type of thing. And a good friend of mine named Al Sorcy from Fredonia and I used to get together and we'd drink his brother's expensive scotch and talk about writing. And he said, you should try Mark Pogodzinski. Try him. Send him what you got. So I did. And here we go, off and running.
Wow. You wrote that first book, then into the second. Now we have 4. Did you even ponder the concept that the world is at your fingertips? It can be whatever you want it to be. Were you intentionally thinking that I can write a book about anything I want? Or you were more focused on maybe getting books sold or getting visibility? Because it almost looks like you could do whatever you want as a fiction writer.
Not really, because you could get a cast of characters together and a general plot and see how they react to situations. And they don't always do what you want them to do. I know that maybe sounds a little strange, but that's the way it works with me. Why did you do that? But if you got a good character, you've built a good character, they will react how they'll react.
I'm fascinated to hear you say that because, from the other side, from the reader side, I'm thinking within reason, character has a certain traits, standards, morals, whatever, values, whatever it might be. So they can't deviate way out of that. But the latitude seems like, you got a large road there to drive down. Did you find yourself challenged in some situations where you wanted to make a character, let's make him do this? And wait a minute, no, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, they just can't act out of character. If they do, you better go back to the drawing board and work a little bit more with it because, the reader does not want to be surprised by a change in character unless that's an evolution of the character. Of course, they all evolve and change throughout the story.
I guess it's expectations and consistency. Great example of that would be Cracker Barrel. I don't know if you guys heard, they completely rebranded. They came up with this all new logo. They abandoned the warm, comfy, homey, mama's making me food feeling. And there was public outcry. It was outrage. They're going back to the original, by the way, as of yesterday.
Oh, are they? Are they really? Well,
Yeah.
some people will be happy with that. I like Cracker Barrel. I never really noticed the logo. It didn't matter to me. It was the food, but
It's people didn't expect. It's like Coke. How about McDonald's? You go to McDonald's and they announce, well, we're selling pizza now. What? That's not what I expected. So I would imagine it'd be kind of the same with a character. You got to stay true to who the character is. Out of all 4 books that you've written, Marshall, do you have a favorite, or is it like children? You love them all the same?
Oh, you love them all the same. I've got a lot of children, so yeah, absolutely. But I did spend the most time on The Shadow of Forever. That story was cooking in my head since I was a little kid. I read Beowulf, and just the hooks were set. And also the Leather Stocking Tales, with Cooper and those adventures. And so the characters in The Shadow of Forever are quite an adventure.
Now, a lot of that takes place on water. Do you have an affinity for the ocean?
I do. I was a swimmer in high school and college, and I'm an avid kayaker. I've done some whitewater stuff in my younger years. So, yeah. But I also had to do a lot of reading on it because the ships, the way they were built, clinker built, they kind of roll with the waves a little bit. So that type of thing. Absolutely.
When you're writing something that has some history, like the Nordic saga, do you feel like you're back there in that time frame? Like when you're writing, do you mentally put yourself there as if you were one of those characters and you're on that ship?
For me, yes, I'm definitely there. Sights, sounds, feelings, that type of thing. I think you have to live it to make it relevant to the reader. The reader has to feel like they're there. Put them in a scene, put them the sights, the smells, that type of thing.
I'm going to go a little woo here and a little deep, but there are some believe that we had past lives, and some do past life regressions through hypnotherapy, and sometimes those things present themselves. Believe it if you will or not. Do you think that maybe there was a past life for Marshall back then?
Well, I don't know if I'm being punished for it, but yeah, I don't believe, but I don't disbelieve. I think that there's things going on that we can't explain, and that's part of the story writing process too. Is things come to me, as I'm, I guess, daydreaming. I've always been a daydreamer, and you think about your story. You don't just think about trying to put words on paper. You're a storyteller, which I think is the biggest challenge of writing, is that we're storytelling people, oral histories, that type of thing. And you can use voice inflections, hand gestures, body language, eye contact when you're telling your story, but put that down on a piece of paper.
Therein lies the challenge.
Yeah, I think anyway.
Wow. Have you ever gotten to a point where nothing creative is flowing to you? And if so, what did you do at that point?
That's a good question. Yeah. I've just always had stories kicking around in my mind. And if one is getting a little bit boring or whatever, I maybe sounds strange, but I go to another one. So I've had stories going on. And I don't write anything until a story's fully formed in my head. I don't take notes. I guess the advice is to do an outline, but I don't do that type of thing. I just have it in my head until I can start to write it.
So you come up against the block. How do you mean you go to another one? Do you mean you go to another totally separate book and start working on that one and then come back to another one? Or you fast forward to maybe what could be, 5 chapters in and start with a different scenario and then circle back to where maybe you blocked or you were challenged?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I'll just shift to another story in my head. we like our conspiracy theories, I think, all of us, and did aliens build the pyramids type of thing, and that's a lot of fun, I think, to think about that. But I don't know if we'll ever know. But it's imagination, and I also play music. I play guitar, so a lot of times I'll just, when I'm writing, if I slow down a little bit, I'll just noodle around on the guitar for a while till I come back to it.
I still have Beowulf stuck in my head. Thank you for bringing that up. What a flashback.
What a great story. What and coming back to life, this. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. You enjoyed that as well?
Yeah, it brings me back to being, a kid. Like I remember, the teacher assigning that book. We haven't talked about The Lost Cove. Tell us about that one.
Oh, that one was, that came about once when I read where a pastor of a mega church had, he had told people that they couldn't come into his church during a hurricane because he didn't want his carpets ruined. And I thought, wow, what's up with that? And then I thought, well, aren't these mega churches, some of them, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but aren't they like just giant casinos almost? And then I thought, if there was a clever person that could somehow get into the finances of one of those mega churches, he could make a fortune laundering money. So that was the nexus of that story, was that chief financial officers laundering money for a cartel or whatever. and anyone who gets in his way, anyone winds up floating up on shore, which is the beginning of the book. And, somebody like that's very, very careful, but they stumble. And sometimes they stumble when someone who just isn't even looking runs into them. So that's that story.
That's an interesting one. So we have the Norse over to this, CFO and money laundering and mega churches. Fact checking in The Lost Cove. Was there any for that one?
Was there any
fact checking? Did you have to adhere to, worrying about any of the things that were presented there, like double checking? Were there any facts that lied in that one?
Well, yeah, it's not a true story, although it probably could be. It could be a true story. Casinos are often accused of laundering money, and money laundering is a pretty cool story. You get into Breaking Bad and stories like that. And so, but I try to do a lot of research on everything that I write so that it's real, believable.
Truth be told, Breaking Bad, I first started watching that and I had to stop after like 2 episodes. I felt bad for Walter. I guess I'm very empathetic, and I was like, oh man, I can't, dude's got a real problem. I don't want to watch that. And then I circled back to it a few months later and then got hooked on it and watched the whole thing. But it's amazing how characters can make you feel a certain way. Like I just didn't want to see somebody going through a tough time. Do you try to put that in your stories where you're looking for ways to grab the rest of us and make us feel what that character is feeling?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think if you build good characters, where do you come up with your characters? And somebody asked, I don't know, it was an author, blues musician, or jazz musician once, where do you get your information? Where do you get your inspiration? And his answer was, from living. Just watching people and seeing what, not just people but also people in the news, people in the movies, that type of thing, characters.
I have done morning radio for a long time, and all I do is observe people. That's where I get all the bits from. I just watch people.
There you go. That's exactly.
Just looking at life, the way we look at things and such. Mark, we have 4 radically different books here. When you got each one of these along the way, did you notice a common theme within Marshall's writing, his style, even the way that maybe the books needed to be eventually edited?
I think you can tell listening to Marshall, the character is the essential part of the stories. And so that was what draws the reader in. Those characters, when you, as you say, with Walter White, when you become empathetic even to a villain. And reading Marshall's work, I always think Kurt Vonnegut, his advice, you should create a character that the audience knows so well that they can finish the book even if you die halfway through writing it. And I think a lot of his characters are like that. You understand their motivations, you understand who they are, and they become alive, which is essential for a great character. The character leaves the page, leaves the story, and lives in your mind. And the voice that you create when you're reading the book, that becomes real. The description he uses in the books, those become real. And so that, I think, not that the plots are similar in any way, but the connective tissue of his writing are those characters that jump off the page. And I think it's true with Marshall's work, as what Vonnegut said, if he somehow produces half a book, I could finish it because I know what the character should do. So I think the characterization, character creation is what sets his books apart from others.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but that would be the mark of a well laid out character, where a couple of chapters in, you already have a feel for the character. You got their MO, you know the direction they're going. You might even just throw a hypothetical situation in. Yeah, I know how they would react to that. Marshall, would you say in all four of these books, there's a piece of your personality in at least one of the characters?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think I try to live the characters. And you asked me that question a little bit earlier, and I definitely try to be in the scene with the character and react how would that character react? And if a good friend, let's say you know a good friend, and you imagine a situation or some situation comes up, you know exactly how he or she is going to react to that because you know your friend very, very well. And I think maybe you become friends with some of the characters in the book too. You might be one of the side characters.
Well, that being said, you mentioned friend. Are your friends and maybe relatives a part of some of the other characters in these books?
Yeah, absolutely. I played rugby for 20 years, and a lot of the characters I drew on guys that I played with and against. Some of the camaraderie, especially in the Shadow of Forever, came from that. Black Horse Rugby, born in the woods, raised by a bear.
Sounds like that's a book coming our way.
Oh, yeah, could be.
I mean, everything from church scandals to sagas on the seas for Vikings. What would be next? What are you working on? Are you working on something? If you were, what do you think the timepiece might be for the next one? Oh
yeah, Mark. It's on its way. I got to do a couple more read throughs on it, but it's called Vidali, and it's about the main character is a lake in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and there's a debate between the people that live there. Some want development, some do not. And a developer comes in that wants to just make it a glowing tourist attraction. The state loves the idea. They're going to improve all the roads and bridges into the area. But some people are fighting it. They don't want to see that happen. And that's a topical thing that really does happen. Vale, Breckenridge, all the locals get pushed out, that type of thing. So that's on its way.
So you've done a few. Let's look at that particular piece. You've written it. Mm-hmm. You read through it again. Is that your procedure? Like you'll go through it again? Do you go through page by page as if you were a fresh reader every time you go through the book?
Well, I think Mark could probably answer that. I think they said that Hemingway rewrote The Old Man and the Sea 200 times.
Wow.
So it's very much part of the process. Go through it again. Some characters grow, some fade. Some of the plot becomes extraneous, and it's a hard thing to cut stuff that you've written. That's one of the biggest challenges, to say, this is not really part of the story, so I better cut it out.
Mark, is that part of the editing process? I've never heard that before. When I think of editing, I'm thinking of, maybe we'll present this scene in a different way. Maybe, the way it was written, just maybe tweak it a little bit there. But when it comes to cutting a character out or cutting them back, is that also part of editing?
Yeah. Everyone has a different technique in terms of editing. And as you said, one of the hardest things to do is realize that I've written 150 pages and 75 of them are not great. I need to either cut everything or try to rewrite it. And the rewriting process is taxing because you put a lot of effort into it. And at one point, that was the most perfect book ever written in human history in your mind. And then all of a sudden, whoa, half of this is terrible. This character makes no sense. I don't like this character. And it is difficult. It's like cutting off an arm. At one point it was essential, and then it becomes superfluous. So it's tough for an author to do that. And it's actually, I think it could be difficult for having someone else do it too. Someone who hasn't read the book and like, all right, I've torn your book to pieces, and over half of it, I think you should get rid of. And I don't know. I've seen it with my own work where it's come back from an author and it's just got red line after red line after red line, and there are pages upon pages of notes. So to do that to yourself in your quiet moments in your own study, like, this is self-amputation. This is going to be tough, but it's something I have to do. And then you always question it. Was it the right thing? Should I have done it? Should I add more? Should I cut? And that's why I think it helps to have like a second set of eyes, because you can get lost in your own little world there, your own little editing issue, and it's tough to dig out from time to time. And I think it's important to have like a partner or someone else look at the book as you're going through it.
I'm actually feeling like anxiety thinking about it. I really am. All the work goes into it. And then you start feeling, the sub character is just not cutting it, but you put a lot into establishing that character. And to Mark's point, I could just eliminate him, but maybe I do need them. But to what degree? That's a lot of variables here. There's more to what meets the eye when it comes to writing a book. But then again, that's why you have a publisher looking over your shoulder, maybe, pointing a couple of things out. And the Hemingway thing, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to look deeper into that. I got hooked on Hemingway a few months ago and started doing, a deep dive into his life and what was he into. He's very accident prone, a bunch of other things going on there.
Accident with a shotgun, but yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Great talking with both of you today. If anybody's thinking about writing a book, fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter. nfbpublishing.com if you want some insight, you want to get it done right, and somebody who truly cares. Marshall, thank you for everything today. Just very fascinating, interesting, this whole process. Really appreciate you both being here.
Well, thank you very much. It's a good conversation. Thanks.
Likewise. All right, we're coming right back. Hang on.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Got to get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man to man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org, a public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.